G'day YouTube, welcome back. It's day 2 of the BMW E30 build. It's quite late, it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm just getting started. But last night I was out here till around about 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I think it was closer to 11. So what I've got to do today is finish removing the wiring harness. I've got to take the old engine and gearbox off of the subframe. I'm going to replace the ball joints here. I managed to get them off once it was out of the car, so I've got to do that. To do that, I've got to take the rear cradle off of the pallet, move it out of the road so I can use the engine crane to take the engine off here. Plenty to do. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the build, second video in, and hopefully you can also appreciate just how tricky it is to try and complete a mammoth task like this with one person on your own and try and film awesome content at the same time. So I'm doing my very best. I'm still trying to learn new skills on editing and all that sort of stuff, but we're getting there. All of this stuff I've got to then take photos of and get it up on Marketplace, among other things, because we got to find money to pay for all this stuff. So we've got to sell all the old stuff, so all of the radiator and everything will be for sale. So I've got to get that up online. Stick around and I'll show you where we get to. It's just getting better. We are just getting started. So you've just seen a quick time lapse of me putting the engine on the crane. It's now outside, I've pressure washed it all. The next step is to organise to get the new subframe into the car. But first I've got to take out the old subframe. So what I've done is I've disconnected the handbrake. This has to be the easiest handbrake of all to undo. It's just a 10mm bolt. Undo that and slide it out, really simple. A lot easier than the Civic one. You've got to sort of jam it through and feed it up. It's a little bit painful. The next thing I went ahead and did was unbolt a couple of plates each side here. There was 2 6mm Allen keys there to undo, so they're good. I've taken off the bolt here which holds the diff in to the chassis. And then what I've got to do now is bring the table underneath here just like I did for the engine and undo these last 2 bolts. And then the entire subframe should drop down. I've disconnected the brake lines. There's no suspension holding it up, and then that's it. Fingers crossed it goes smoothly. Back on a time lapse, we'll get this done. So not going to lie, that was a lot harder than I thought. I undid all the bolts and put the table under the middle and then tried to lift it up, but all the angles and things, it's quite a long pin on that into the chassis, so you get the angle wrong. It wants to lock up and not slide out of its place, so didn't want to bend the stud, so I had to go up and down a few times. Had to get my missus involved to help me man the hoist, so that's why the time lapse cut out and cut back in, but we're done, we're out. So I've spoken to Lawrence from BRINTECH today, and what I need to do next before I do anything else, is cut off the tab here which held on the ear of the old Diff. It was only secured by 4 bolts at the front and 1 bolt at the back, which seems a bit strange, but because this build is having a lot more power and a heap more torque, which is the big thing, and it's got a bigger Nissan R200 Diff out of an S15 or an S14 Silvia, even a Skyline as well, so it's got a Skyline rear end and the huge Wilwood brakes. We're going to need to reinforce this, so there is a brace that goes along here onto the back of the Diff, and it's strengthened on each part of the chassis. So my next task will be to cut these tabs off and get out the grinding disc and just get rid of all of this body sealer. So we're going to get rid of that and get ready to test fit the new Diff and mounting and everything, and make sure that we can weld on those tabs nice and smoothly to a nice clean surface that doesn't have any glue or anything on there. So that's going to be my next task, and then it will be pressure washing everything, and then it will be Raptor lining. So we're going to Raptor line the whole underside of the car, get it protected, get it sound deadened, and just looking all brand new and fully restored under here. It's something that I wish I could have done on the VL build and my Civic build. If we have any left over, we might do that to one or both of those, or go buy some more. But I've got the schutzing gun, and we'll get that all schutzed underneath here in the next couple of days. So I've got to do this all again in reverse to put the new Diff in to test the mounts. So that's going to be fun, knowing how much of a challenge this was. But yeah, I'll get set up and I'll come back to that in just a moment. Last thing you would have seen was me grinding away bits of the frame rail, and here it is here. It's just actually this glue stuff I had to take off, just enough so I could run a bead of weld along there. Now you'll also notice the shiny blue parts. This is the Wilwood big brake kit, which is 4-piston on the back and 6-piston on the front. This is a fully serviced, refurbished, repowder coated, brand new basically rear end from BRINTECH. They've replaced all of the bushes with no-lethane blue bushes. We've got toe and caster correction already in there in the front, so that's already thought of and done. We've got the solid bushes just in there, so they're all on. And the reason why this is in here now, which was a bit of a pain in the butt to do, which is why I didn't film it. I needed my missus and myself, 2 of us, to help get it all situated. The reason why it's in here is because I needed to put these plates in and get this all welded up. I could have just put them on and welded it, but it would have been either crooked or too far forward or back. But what I've got to go ahead and do now is tack this in and then undo these bolts once it's down on the bench again, and then put it up and then fully weld that in. So that's what I'm going to do now. Give it a quick tack. I need to, I'll bash that up flat with a hammer, and off I go. And I'll probably cut that tab off and clean this up before I weld it. But what I'll do, put a few welds here and here and along the back, so that's going to stay in properly. Same thing on the other side, is I'll weld a bit here and across the side, everywhere I can get to nice and easy. And then I'll pull the whole subframe out again, weld it up fully, so I know it's not going to move. Once all that's fully welded up, I'll chuck it on another time lapse so you can watch me do it. Hopefully I don't burn any holes in anything. But one thing I noticed was the BMW frame rails are really thick and solid steel, so that won't be an issue at all. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, tomorrow I can get on to the Raptor liner, which is the hard coating, kind of like this stuff here, but about 3 times harder, twice as thick, and insulating, waterproof, soundproof, rust proof, everything proof, nuclear bomb proof, and we'll give this thing a full undercarriage restoration. And then I can start to put everything back in it again on the rear end, and it'll be over to painting the bay. So I've just been working at my own pace, listening to podcasts, doing all sorts of things, listening to music, and dismantling the car, getting ready to paint the engine bay. And I took off the guard liner. Check out this. This is a pile of sand and all sorts of shit. There's some spiders in there. God, there's got to be 2 kilos of dirt in. So the camera died. Hopefully it saved the last clip. I'll check it in a second. GoPros have a habit of doing that. You get to like 40% or 35% and it just will die. So very annoying. But check out down here. That's what came out. Like there's actual piles of dirt. And you can see in there. Now I'm going to pressure wash it out. Mind you, I've already pressure washed the entire underside of the car, but I'm about to do it again. I'm excited to take off this side here and see if that's full of mud as well. But slowly, I'll give you guys an update in just a second. But yeah, I'm just pulling it apart to paint the bay, pressure wash underneath the car and get ready to Raptor line it. I'll be back in a second and I'll show you how I went with welding in the rear. I'll do that in a minute. I want to finish this off first. So after 2 days of cleaning underneath and inside and all around the car, I'm calling it quits for the night. Tomorrow, I'm going to tackle the Raptor liner, get that all on the car. We've got a full empty chassis now with nothing in it. Hopefully the video worked where you get to see that it was full of dirt up until this point. The whole cavity was caked in dirt. This side I didn't film, but it went up to there as well, so about half the time. I've taken out all the sound deadening and everything there throughout the tunnel. It was pretty heavy, pretty rotted, and just full of filth and didn't look very nice. So I'm going to clean up and paint the engine bay all eventually. In the next couple of days. I've got to chop out a few brackets and smooth some things down and make it all hectic. Once the engine is ready to go back in, I'll make a plate here to cover where the headers go on the extractors, and I'll get some more sound deadening stuff and put under the tunnel. But the Raptor liner, which is going to go to about there, just where the gearbox is going to go and you can't see any further in, that should help with a lot of the sound deadening as well. I am going to paint over the fuel tank in Raptor liner just to help protect everything and coat underneath it. I don't really see the point of pulling it out. I'm obviously not going to sit there with the gun and just cake in on everything, but I'll go over it and go around it as best as I can. I'll tape up everything, all the threads, make all that nice. So I did weld in those brackets there, and no, my welding is not the best, and any welder will tell you that 10-20 minutes with the grinder makes everyone's welds look better anyway. So that's all done. It's all welded all the way around. Not one continuous weld, just in case anything ever cracks is what I'm told. You don't want to do a full weld because the crack will continue all the way through. I've welded it around in sections on all angles. It is super duper strong. And what I'm going to do is get some CRC paint and just give that a rust treating there, and then we're all good to go. This car has a beefy sound system in it that I need to figure out how to get into so that I can take the back shocks out, which is a real mission. But let's get some of that CRC paint. Here it is, CRC black zinc rust protection. We're going to bang that on. I'll give it a good shake off camera and spray those. Now we're going to Raptor liner over the outside of this. I'm going to tape off the inside so that I can still fit the brace in there. But this is just to stop it rusting underneath the Raptor coat. And I'll do everywhere where I've ground away paint and such. Goes on nice and thick but even. Done, too easy. Give that a little bit of a lick. All done. That brings us to the end of today's video. I'm packing up now. I've already had to wash out the floor of the shop, and I'm just taking photos of a whole bunch of stuff and chucking it up on Marketplace. Like I mentioned, take good photos, get the lighting just right, and you shouldn't have an issue selling your stuff on Marketplace. So I'm going to continue with that. By tomorrow, this will be all nice and dry, ready for the Raptor liner. I'm absolutely buggered. 2 days worth of work just cleaning this car. It was definitely used as a rally car at some stage in its life, but must have been somewhere really, really dry because there's absolutely no rust in here at all. The only place there's a tiny little bit of rust is just there in the corner of the battery tray, and it's only just surface rust. It's only just started to take. So when I'm prepping the engine bay to get that ready for paint, I'll rust treat that and prep it again, and we'll line it with something underneath the battery as well when we stick the battery back in. Anyway, that's enough for today's video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to spool up, bring the boost, and we'll see you in the next video. Raptor liner, rear subframe in, should be a good one. Cheers.